Hi students, and welcome to today's live IELTS class. My name is Adrian and I am streaming to you live from beautiful Budapest, Hungary. I hope everybody is having a fantastic day so far. We are looking at IELTS reading strategy for Band 9. We will do a reading passage together. This is for the academic IELTS, but it could be the Section 3 passage for your general exam. Hi, Juan Pablo. Good to see you in class. As always, hi, Vinay, SK, Samantha. Good to see you. Amarjeet. Members, always fantastic when you're in class. Excellent. Very importantly, students, our materials come from our premium study websites, aehelp.com for academic IELTS and gieltshelp.com for the general version of the exam. Again, aehelp.com, gieltshelp.com. And even more exciting is our new app for our academic IELTS. Look for our Shield in your iTunes and Play Store. Search for academic IELTS help. The reading that you will see today, the audio that we will use for the reading today, you can get the same from our app. Okay, the app and the website are perfectly connected. You'll see that in a minute. Okay. Jungmin Yun, good to see you from Korea in class on time as usual. Fantastic. All right, students, if you have questions about the exam, about the reading section, about questions like true, false, not given, don't be shy. Send me an email, Adrian, ADRIAN at aehelp.com. Okay. Kulwant Singh says, Sir, I got 7 band in reading only because of your strategies. Kulwant, thank you so much for sharing that. It's always encouraging to hear that our strategies are effective, and it also helps your fellow students to know that, yes, these strategies work when you practice them. Eva Kasa Salontai, good to see you in class, my fellow Hungarian countrywoman. All right, without further ado, let's get into some reading. Today, reading. Tomorrow, we'll do a task 2 finish and then a task 1 as well. All right, here we go. So we are looking at this reading passage today called The London Underground. This is from our exam book 2, test number 4. This is reading passage 1, so it should be fairly straightforward. You're very welcome, Kulwant. All right, I am having a great day, Eva. Thank you. So the Underground, of course, it's also known as a subway. In the UK, they call it the Tube, basically a train that runs underground. Another way to call it is the metro line, of course. All right. So here we have this London Underground. Let's take a look at the questions. We know what we're talking about. Let's see what the questions are. This is the same strategy that you should follow in the official IELTS exam. This is a yes, no, not given question. Do the following statements agree with the claims of the writer? Yes, if the statement agrees with the claims. No, if the statement contradicts. It means the opposite of what the writer is saying. And not given if it's impossible to say what the writer thinks, regardless of if it's true or not. Okay? Should I review this question before the passage? I know it's a question that many of you have heard lots of times, but it's good to remember this. So should I review yes, no, not given, true, false, not given questions before I read the passage? This is very important strategy. It saves you time and it saves you sanity, your thinking. Okay. So yes, no, not given, strategy. Of course, it's the same for true, false, not given. Should I review these before reading? The answer is no, absolutely not. Good answer. Yeah, Hung, very good. Yeah, Charlie says, no, don't read it. It contains false data. Why would you read false information before you read the information that you use for the other questions? Absolutely. So the answer is no. No. Do not read false and ungiven information, as it is simply confusing to the mind. Okay, the mind's not linear. Yeah. So we're not going to read these. All right, then here we have a complete the summary below. Choose one word only from the passage for each answer. Write your answers in boxes 6 to 9. The growth of the London Underground. So this is a summary completion type question. Okay, summary completion. Should I read this one? Pachu says yes, and Pachu is right. Yes, Ashwin, you're right also with your yes. Yes and yes. This is a summary, okay? It's all from the passage. It is paraphrasing the passage. It makes a lot of sense to carefully review this before the passage. In fact, these summary type questions are sometimes easier to understand than the passage. So they're very good to review before the passage. Okay? So summary, completion, strategy. Should I read these before reading the passage? Yes, absolutely. Okay. These are a paraphrase of the passage and will help you to understand the text. All right, so let's do it. Let's read it together. Here we go. Read with me. Students, this is a reading class, so read with me, please, nice and loud. Read aloud. Aloud, okay? So if possible, read so you can hear yourself. All right, here we go. The growth of the London Underground. Again, that's the metro, the subway, the tube. The first line of the Underground was constructed in 1863, and over the next something decades, additional lines would increase the breadth of the system's reach. By the start of World War I, the central part of London was completely covered. Through the mid-20th century, the focus was on making the system available to those living in the city. Before 1933, there were many governing bodies. These were something companies with their own contracts and land. Conversely, management of the tube today is public, looked after by the transport something. All right, good. Now we have some more questions. There's usually about 13 to 14 questions per passage. Here we go. Complete each sentence with the correct ending below, A to F. So we have 4 sentence beginnings, and we have 6 choices. Here, should I read all of this information? Should I read the beginnings and the ends of this question? So sentence completion strategy. What should I read? Sentence completion strategy. Should I read the sentence beginnings and endings before the passage? The answer is Shukrab Jurev says only the beginnings. Right. I think some of you are cluing in now what the trick is to the reading section questions. Yes, only the beginnings. Why? Because this information is clearly in the passage. Okay? So generally, the big tip for reading is read only parts or questions. I should say that a little bit more clearly for you. So read only questions or parts of questions in the reading section which contain information found in the passage. This is clear logic for quick, high band scores. Okay? Let's say performance. All right? So that's the tip here. Okay? So, read only questions or parts of questions in the reading section which contain information found in the passage. This is clear logic for quick, high band performance. All right? Viru, do not underline keywords. Just hang on to them visually, okay? Underlining keywords, not a good strategy. I've seen it done that way. I've seen it done without underlining keywords. And usually students that don't underline keywords have a faster finish and do better, okay? It's because they don't lose focus on details. So careful there, all right? Okay, so let's read the sentence beginnings. Here we go. The tube map is. The map is useful because it allows a person. Beck's key insight was. London's core is. All right, great. Now, we can read the passage. So here is the passage again. It is the London Underground. Students, a beautiful feature that we have on our website and app is we have audio for the reading. That's to help you learn. You don't have that in the official IELTS, but it is great to have for your studies, for your learning. Okay? All right. So I have my volume maximum on my side. I'm using a pretty good Bose speaker. So if it's quiet for you, turn up the volume or try to use a headset. Read along. Importantly, visualize the information, okay? You have a picture here, so try to see what you are reading, okay? Lovepreet, you can try to remember the passage by visualizing and thinking about the questions what and why. So what is the paragraph? Why is the paragraph? Okay? All right, students, I'm going to hop over to our academic website here. That's this with the blue background. You can click that big red button to join there and then download the app and you'll find your full account on the app also, okay? We log in to our My Student account by clicking that button there, the blue button, and then we hop into the My Student account. Of course, you have lots of goodies here, interactive practice exams, full online course, books, workbooks, videos, lots and lots of videos. And then we have some audio CDs. And here in our audio CDs, this is test 4. So we go to CD 4 for those of you who have it. And we go to track 5, which is reading passage 1. Okay, everyone, get ready to read. This is a native British speaker reading the passage with you, not for you, but with you. Okay, here we go.
London Underground. One of the most notable aspects of London, the Underground, or Tube, is also one of the most utilised by locals and visitors alike. Over 1.3 billion passengers use the London Underground every year. If you have ever visited the city, it is very likely that you have been told to mind the gap. In continuous operation for over 150 years, the London Underground began as just one line run by a private corporation. Today, the system is publicly owned and is comprised of 11 separate lines. The growth and development of the Underground has mirrored London's development as, first, an industrial powerhouse, and second, a financial and tourism centre. Great Britain was the epicentre of the Industrial Revolution in the 18th and 19th centuries. Cities like Glasgow, Birmingham, and London gave birth to inventions such as the steam engine, which revolutionised transportation and travel. People began to flock to these cities for jobs, opportunity, and prosperity. London was the destination of choice for many of these people. In 1800, at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, the population of London was less than 1 million people. By 1900, that number would balloon to over 6.5 million people. There were many factors which contributed to this growth, not least of which was improved sanitation. But one factor in particular allowed for the mobility of those people across the ever-expanding city, the construction and development of the London Underground. The first line was constructed in 1863. Over the next 50 years, many more lines would be added, resulting in the virtual blanketing of central London by the start of the First World War. Through the interwar period and mid-20th century, the focus for the subway developers was extending the network to the suburbs of London, where an increasing number of Londoners were now residing. Interestingly, it wasn't until 1933 that the developers of the network unified into a single governing body. Until that time, there were a host of private companies competing for contracts, land, and customers. Today, the London Underground is owned and operated by the London Transport Authority, Transport for London. Perhaps the most recognisable symbol of the London Underground is the tube map, designed in 1931 by Underground employee Harry Beck. With its many colourful lines and intricate details, the tube map is not only useful, but aesthetically pleasing as well. Indeed, a print copy of the tube map is a popular souvenir for tourists to put on their walls back home. That it is artful is, however, only part of its appeal. The tube map is incredibly useful. Just a moment spent looking at the map can help you determine how to get from any point in London to any other point. Beck was able to accomplish this by realizing that the map did not need to exactly match the reality of the tube geography. For instance, a line may go through all sorts of turns through its route, yet on the map it is represented as a straight line. This simplification worried the Underground management in 1931, but soon enough, the tube map became a sensation, both for its usefulness and its elegant design. Today, the tube is used more than ever, and London continues to grow. With the centre of London becoming a financial hub over the past 50 years, more and more jobs have been created in the English capital. While this has in some sense hollowed out the core of London, it has also highlighted the need for more lines to service the ever-increasing number of London suburbs. Additionally, tourism to London has never been higher. Well over 30 million people visited the city in 2015, each of whom undoubtedly at some point used the venerable London Underground.
All right, students. So that is the London Underground, and that's the audio. Again, we have audio for all of our reading passages. I think we have over 18 audio recordings for reading. And you can use those when you study from the website, along with our 100 videos. And of course, you can use it from the app now as well. So when you download the app from the Play Store, then you can use it there as well. All right. Staying on point, students, let's answer these questions. So let's get back to these yes, no, not given question. Okay. All right, Paras, this is a live class. If you're noticing lagging, it's not about us. It's YouTube. It's not perfect technology yet. All right. So yes, no, not given needs computer logic. If this, then that. First question, we need to figure out if the statement is important for the passage. If it's important, then it's going to be given. If it's not important, then it will not be given. Okay? So, first question is, over 1 million passengers use the tube each year. Is it important to know how many people use the London Underground every year? Is that important? That's the question you should be asking yourself, first of all, for number one. So, is it important to know how many people use it each year? Yes, it is. So, many of you are saying, yes, absolutely, it is. Okay? So, yeah, it's important. Okay? So, if it's important, yes, then it has to be given. So now our choice is from 3. So we had not given, yes, and no. Now our choice is just 2. So now our choice is yes or no. Okay, yes, it agrees with the writer, or no, it doesn't. So we've narrowed our choice from 3 to 2. So far, so good. Okay, because we think it's important. Certainly, it must be yes or no. So now I ask the next question. Is it true that is it true that more than 1 million people use the underground? So is that true? And many of you are saying, yes, that's true. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, it's true. Therefore, the answer is yes. Okay? Remember, this is a yes, no, not given. If you write T or if you write true, it will be wrong. Okay? So, yeah. How many people use the underground? So it says over 1 million, not 1 million. It says over 1 million, which means more than 1 million. How many people use the London Underground? Okay. A lot. It was like, I think like 5 billion or something like that. A lot of people use it, a lot of passengers. It's not just people, it's passengers, right? Passengers is more than people. Ava says 1.3 billion. Yeah, there you go. So some of you caught it. So in fact, it's 1,300 million passengers. That's way more than a million passengers. So this one is definitely a yes for a correct answer. Number 2, the tube is privately owned. Okay, so number 2, the tube is privately owned. What's the question? Okay, students, don't jump to the answer. That's dangerous. Okay, so remember this. Remember it well. It is one of the sure ways to lose marks. Okay, is ignore your logical system. Let's go back to our true, false, not given, or yes, no, not given strategy here. So it is very dangerous to just jump to an answer without logical consideration. Okay? Be very, very careful. Always ask the full questions. Is it important? Is it true that? Those are the full questions. Always ask those. Jumping to the answer is dangerous. All right? So the question is it important to know who owns the metro system in London for this passage? So talking about the London Underground, is that important? Is the ownership of the tube important? Charlie Sen, very nice phrasing of the question. Charlie Sen in the chat says, ownership of the tube, is it important or not for this passage? Okay. Yes, it absolutely is. We're talking about the metro system. So ownership is important. Yes, it is. So it's important. So yes, therefore, it's given. So again, I'm down to 2 choices. I'm down to yes and no. Okay. Next question, what is it? What's the next question for the logic? Okay. Juan Pablo, absolutely, it's important. So what's my next question for the logic? And use full questions, students, especially when practicing at home. I really, really highly recommend using full sentence questions. So what's the full sentence question? And I'll show you why it's important. This is a really good example here. Okay, so use full questions. I can't emphasize enough how important that is. So here's the example. Is it true that the underground is privately owned? Okay, that's the full question. Is it true that the underground is privately owned? Very good, Pachu. Yeah, absolutely. Laila, very good. Vasquez, very good. Okay. And then we have the answer. Is it true that the tube is privately owned? Manjot Kaur seems to think so. Jun Min-yoon says, yes, about the corporation, it was underground. Yeah, so the correct answer, Amina says no, no. And the correct answer is no. So true? No. Okay. How about if I change it to was? The tube was privately owned. Then is it true? Then does it agree? So if I change the is to was, then is it true? Ah, Jingmin says, then yes. Juan Pablo says, absolutely yes. So what did we learn from my little example here of changing the be verb to is and was? Okay. The IELTS exam is very particular. They're testing you at every level. Are you paying attention? Are you paying attention to tense and the be verb and the grammar? Okay? Focus on tenses. That difference of the yes and no might just be the difference of an is and a was. So be very careful, students. Be very careful. Pay attention to tenses in the questions. They matter a lot. Okay? So when you ask your question, is it true that the underground, make sure your question has the same tense. That's why it's important to ask the full sentence question so you can reflect the same tense in your question as the statement. Does that make sense? So that little hint I just gave you, does it make sense? Say it one more time. When you ask the full question from the statement, be sure to have the same verb tense in your question. That will really help you figure out the correct answer. Okay, very important. All right. Now that we have a clear idea of how to do these, let's go through the rest of them. Here we go. So the second one, as we just discussed, is a no. Number 3, the steam engine was invented in London. All right. What's the full question here? Is it important to know where the steam engine was invented for the London Underground? Is it important? Is it important to know for the London Underground, the metro, to know where the steam engine was invented? Okay. Kartik, nice. That's the full question. No, it's not important, right? So, therefore, the answer is not given. Now, some students might think, well, yeah, but we have to know where the steam engine was invented because it's a train, right? But don't forget, students, be clever, visualize. Did we use steam engines for the subway? So do you think we ever used the steam engine for the subway? A steam engine is the old train, right? So those old trains with the big... smokestacks coming out. Okay. So that's a steam engine. Did we ever use a steam engine as a subway train? No, we're using electricity. And I love how Arvinder Virk got my joke. There was a joke there, Arvinder, and you got it. Could you imagine putting a steam engine underground? That might cause a little bit of a breathing problem for the passengers and the people, not to mention visibility, right? It would be a bad idea to put a steam engine into the underground railway system. Okay, so definitely we need an electric train for the underground. Our passengers might arrive, just not very much alive. All right, so let's go to the next one. London grew by a factor of 6 from 18 to 1900. Is it important to know the growth of London for the London Underground? That's the question here. So is it important to know the growth of London back in the old days, in the 1900s? Is it important to know this growth for this transport system? Jatin Chabra says, affirmative, and I agree, absolutely. So our first answer is yes. Therefore, it's given. Therefore, we ask our next question, which is it true? So, full sentence, is it true that London grew by a factor of 6 from the 18 to 1900s? Is that true? DJ Spinbad Jr., yeah, absolutely it's relevant because a railway system, think about it, a railway system like the London Underground supports the growth of a city. We use mass transport systems to support the growth of a city. It's very important. Is it true? Yes, it is. Okay, yes, it is. Now, if I don't know the answer and I'm like, I don't know, maybe, maybe not, I don't know what's going on, what should I do? So I know that it's given, which is a very good sign, okay? If I know that the answer is given, I know that it's somewhere in the text. So that's a lot of help to know that it's in the text, because I never want to search for not given answers, right? That would take way too much time. So if I know that it's given, I know that if I need to, I can search for it, right? And Amina says, go back to the paragraph. So Amina Asaid says, go back to the paragraph. And Amina, you're right. So my question, Amina, to you is, which paragraph should I go back to, and what am I looking for? Okay. Here's some more logic coming at your way to be very fast. So if you know all these tricks and tips, you can be very quick in the exam. So where do I go back to, and what am I looking for? So Sukharab says you're probably looking for those numbers 18 to 1900. Yeah, dates are easy to find. It's going to be a body paragraph and probably somewhere near the beginning, right? So I don't want to just randomly search the whole passage. That's very confusing, takes a lot of time. But as an author, I know that I want to tell my reader the reason for the underground or the metro, so I should put that somewhere in the beginning of the passage. So I go back to somewhere near the first two paragraphs, okay? And I look for that 18 to 1900. So I'm going to go to the second paragraph. It doesn't look like information for the introduction. It definitely looks like information for the body. And right at first glance, so right as I'm looking at this, boom, there is the 1800. There is the 1900. So it's looking sweet right now. It's looking good. So I'm going to read this, okay? In 1800, at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, the population, ooh, that looks really good now, of London was less than 1 million. 1 million. By 1900, that number would balloon. A balloon, of course, as you know, is a balloon that children play with, right? And balloon means to grow. Balloon as a verb means to grow. To over 6.5 million. Is that a factor of 6? So from 1 million to 6 or over 6 million, is that a factor growth of 6? Is it a 6-factor growth? Factor, of course, here does mean multiplication, so times. So is it a factor of 6? Does it agree with the author here? Yes, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Okay. 6.5 is a factor of 6 because 6.5 divided by 1 is still 6 point something. So it's a factor of 6. So here my answer is yes, that's true. And that's how it's done, ladies and gentlemen. So even if you have to look for these answers, you need to look smart, not dumb. Okay, you need to look clever, intelligent, logical search. It is very frustrating as an IELTS teacher, examiner, to see students flipping like a crazy squirrel and scanning up and down and everywhere in the passage for like 5 minutes for one question. Of course you don't have enough time if you do that, okay? It should not work that way. That's craziness. All right? Okay. Ashwin, over 6.5 is still a factor of 6. Okay, it's a factor of 6. All right, number 5, improved sanitation was the least important factor in London's growth. So last one, number 5, improved sanitation was the least important factor in London's growth. Is it important? Is it important? Arun, Mala, I'm showing you right now how you can secure a band 9. Is it important to know whether or not sanitation, so clean sewage, was an important part of London's growth for the London Underground? So many of you are saying no and not. Unfortunately, it is in this passage, okay? It doesn't seem like it's important, but in this case, it is, okay? Now, some of you are going, but Adrian, you told us that, it should be clearly important. Yeah, but IELTS is not that easy, okay? The last question, sometimes the last 2 questions, they're testing for Band 8, Band 9 students. Okay? So this is testing for that Band 9 student. Who's the Band 9 student? Okay? And to be a Band 9, you need lots of good strategies together. Okay? For example, you need to be a good visualizer. You need to visualize really well. That means see the information. When you're reading this passage, you should have visualized the growth of London. They gave us a few different points for what was important. Okay? So this is a little bit tricky. Okay, because this is given. Right? So it's given. So it has to be a yes or no. Now, is it true that improved sanitation, so having good sewage, is not important? Okay, so is number 5, is that true that you don't need clean sewage to build a large city? Hung says absolutely not. Okay, and Smith Gohel also says absolutely not. Yeah, students, this word is a very interesting word here. What do you call that in English? So if I have least, what type of a word is that compared to less? Okay, so how is least different from less? Anybody know the technical term for least versus less, or best versus better? Anybody know those technical? Yeah, very good. Okay, 24 tech zone. Thank you for the answer. This is called a superlative. You can think about the word super in there. So it's superlative, okay? And less and better are comparative. Or another way you might hear it is a relative. Okay? Superlative, relative. All right? An interesting fact for most academic information is superlative words are rarely true in the real world. Okay? So this is the best apple in the world. Really? You really found the best apple of all of those apple trees in all of those places around the world? Of all the apples on those apple trees, those billions and billions of apples, you found the best apple in the world. Wow, that is very lucky, luckier than a lottery ticket. When we use superlatives in conversation, we use them to amaze people. But in academics, in science, in academic business language, superlatives are quite dangerous. Okay, because they're usually not true. So be very careful about that. So here, improved sanitation was the least important factor. If you can figure out that it's given, you can probably figure out that it's no. Because superlatives are rarely important. Okay? If you have to, you can check for the word sanitation in the text, but you're quite safe to think no. Okay? That's right. We use the superlative to have exaggeration in many cases, but they're rarely true. So you need to be very careful with superlatives in your writing also, students. So if you're writing for the academic IELTS exam, task 1 and task 2, it's usually better. Notice how I don't say always. It's usually better to use comparative or relative words than to use superlatives, okay? They're more accurate for most situations, okay? All right, so there we have our answers. Now, let's do this one. The first line, so this is our summary completion, and we have to fill in the blanks. So the growth of the London Underground. The first line of the Underground was constructed in 1863 and over the next something decades. All right, I have no idea what that is, but I can search for this and I know that it's in the introduction. Why? Because it's clear that we're introducing the information here. So it's a number of years. Okay. So it's got to be somewhere in the beginning here, right? So 18, sorry, here we go. There we go. A little bit lower. It's not the introduction. Still in the beginning, though. All right. Specifically, I'm looking for this year because this year is very easy to find with my eyes. So the first line was constructed in 1863. Over the next 50 years, many more lines would be added. Okay, so the correct answer for the space number 6 is the first line of the Underground was constructed in 1863, and over the next something decades. How many decades? 5 decades. Very good. So the missing word is 5. Okay. Make sure that in blank 6 in your answer key, so you have blank 6 here. Okay. Make sure you just write the word 5, or even better is just the number. Okay. Okay, so don't do a number because it says choose one word only. So it says one word only from the passage. So there's only one word here. So the best is just to stay with 5. Okay. And don't write the word decades. If you write decades, it's going to be wrong because it's 2 words. Okay, they give you the word decades, so just have the word 5 only. Okay, and yes, it is okay to use all capitals, so you can do this. Okay, that's fine. All right. Okay, let's keep going. Additional lines would increase the breadth of the system's reach. By the start of World War I, the central part of London was completely covered. Through the mid-20th century, the focus was on making the system available to those living in something of the city. So the mid-20th century. Mid-20th century is the 1950s. Okay. Those living in what part of the city? This one you should be able to figure out. Fat, if you write the number 5, I think they might give it to you, to be honest. But it might be safer to just write the word 5 for the previous question. Okay. Hung says suburbs. Yeah, Jatinder says 5 is a number, not a word. That's the problem, right? It doesn't say number or a word. So suburbs. Yeah, Hung, very good. So you should be able to figure out that this is suburbs. Okay. Suburbs. DJ Spinbud, very good. Suburbs, for those of you who don't know, so if this is the city center, it's downtown. when you go outside of the city center where you have all of your houses, okay, that is the suburbs. So this is the urban area. Sub meaning under, so this is the suburban area. Okay, is that clear now for a lot of you? So clearly during the 1800s, the metro lines, they covered all of these downtown regions. And then in the 20th century, visually, you can see that they started to cover the suburbs of London like that. Okay? All right. So also another way to say suburbs is the outskirts of the city, the outskirts of the city. Okay. All right, before 1933, there were many governing bodies. These were something companies. Again, this is a fairly easy question if you're thinking logical. What goes here? So these were something companies with their own contracts and land. Yeah, private, of course, private. It's not a public company, it's a private company. So private. Yeah, these were private companies. Exactly. All right. Conversely, management of the tube today is public, looked after by the transport, what? Number 9, anybody remember? So who owns the London Underground today? Looked after by the transport. Again, it's a simple word. Hung says it's just authority. It's the transport authority. Yeah, it's not overly complex. Okay. Now, if I have to search for this information, if you're like, yeah, great, Adrian, but you're a native speaker of English, you understood that. This is what you teach, you remember it. Don't worry, don't panic. Just go back and look for this information in the correct place. So if you have to look back at the passage, then we go back to this little paragraph here that talks about where the lines were added. So we're summarizing this here. That last question should be somewhere near the end. So today, the London Underground is owned and operated by the London Transport Authority, Transport for London. So there you go, Transport Authority. Okay, so you can find it. Summaries are coming from the same place. All right. Okay. All right, students. So we have one more set of questions. The matching sentence endings. So here they are. The tube map is. The map is useful because it allows a person. Beck's key insight was, and London's core is. And here are the possible 6 answer choices. This last question I will leave for you as a homework challenge, and then I will post it on our community board on the channel later on, okay? That's all the time I have for today, and I think that there are definitely a few bits of important strategy I covered with you, talking about yes, no, not given, which is the same as true, false, not given, summary completion, what questions to read and which ones not to read before the passage. Again, students, remember, download our app. You have access to a lot of this good information and strategy and materials through our app, through your phone. Beautifully designed, very responsive. And when you download the app, you can log on to the website in the same account. You can access your premium course. So once you buy our premium course on the app or the website, you can use it on both, okay? They're perfectly integrated. They're seamlessly integrated. So search for Academic IELTS Help in your app store, or you can also go on our website, aehelp.com, click that red button, join, fill out the payment form here, which obviously is a little bit bright for you. Join it there, and after you make payment here, you can download the app, log on, and access the same material. It's super cool. Okay, it's very good investment of your money, and it is the most advanced IELTS online learning system that's available today. I've checked our competitors. They don't have anything this fancy. So check it out. Okay, students who use it are all happy with it so far. All right, everyone, and that's it. Have a great rest of your day. Sweet dreams. If it's late in your country, I will be back tomorrow with task 2 completion for members and task 1 charts, graphs, and diagrams for everybody. Same time tomorrow. Bye for now.